Welcome to the first episode of a webinar that is hosted by the Life Science Acceleration Alliance, and I'm very happy to have with me my fellow board members from the LSAA team, Sascha Berger and Cedric Moreau. Dr. Sascha Berger is a general partner at TVM Capital in Munich, one of the European pioneers of venture capital. He has been with the TVM Life Sciences team in Munich since 2016. He was instrumental in raising the current fund of 440 million euros. He acts as advisor and is a board member at several life sciences startups. Sascha has a strong financial background with almost 10 years of professional transaction and strategy experience. He has successfully completed 20 M&A transactions. Sascha is a regular speaker on corporate finance topics for German universities and business schools. Thank you for joining us, Sascha.
Thank you for having me.
And our other guest is Cedric Moreau. He's a partner at Sofinnova Partners in Paris, a leader in European venture capital. He has 18 years of experience in life sciences investment banking and managed more than 2 billion euros in European healthcare transactions. Cedric has deep transaction expertise in the biopharma industry, as well as an extensive network of key opinion leaders, bankers, and lawyers, which of course we especially appreciate for LSAA. His approach is more like a late-stage VC investor. That means buying into companies depending on their clinical stage development and proof of concept, and then help them get ready for what comes next. Usually a stock market listing, hopefully somewhere in Europe, and or a deal with major pharma or healthcare company. Also, very welcome, Cedric. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rainer.
The ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in life sciences is quite complex, quite complicated, and not well understood. So what we're trying to do in this episode is to sort of describe what is happening, how we're working, and what is the benefit of risk capital in developing new technologies, innovative treatments, new active compounds. And one example, for example, is just the BioNTech and Moderna story. New technology, mRNA, enabled us to develop vaccines in a very fast fashion, faster than we've had in the past. And it's really a success story, but it was only possible because of the venture capital, the risk capital that supported the development of those technologies. So how does risk capital contribute to a successful journey for innovators, Cedric?
Oh, I'm happy to start. And you kindly introduced me and Sofinnova, and maybe I can just mention that Sofinnova inception was in 1972. So you can imagine that we have now 50 years experience in that industry, and of course in 1972 capital risk was just at the beginning. So lots of change, but what we can say is definitely a long-term game. You just mentioned mRNA. We know that the first work on any mRNA approach platform was 20 years ago. Moderna was set up 10 years ago, as BioNTech even more. So that's a long-term game. I think it's what we have all in mind when we are investing in this sector, in this company. And of course, accepting the risk, that's part of the game. More failure than success, but definitely when you bring innovation in this industry, you can make the difference and you can have a huge impact. And I think is the reason why all the team, and particularly at Sofinnova, is working hard, just all having in mind bringing new treatments and better quality of life for patients. So even we talk about capital, about finance, always having the patient in the center. I think it's absolutely important. So long-term game, keeping the patient and really the main goal, the impact goal in mind is absolutely critical. And maybe last point is we try to be all along the value chain. from the seed, the accelerator part, to the more the building part, and as you say, the growth in my fund to making sure you can really accompany your company, your management all along this long journey to build the value and type of time, as you mentioned, to catch the value.
Thank you.
Actually,
Sascha?
maybe just, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Cedric said, of course. we're sitting here in the same boat, so to say. Compared to Sofinnova, TVM is a young fund, right? We only started in the early 80s. But still, I mean, this means more than 35 years of experience in this, and it indeed takes a long breath. I just want to underline what Cedric said in regards to risk. I mean, this is called risk capital because there is indeed a substantial amount of risk, maybe more risk in the life sciences than in other sectors like in technology. Because here often situations are black and white. Either it's a complete failure or it's a big success, like in the case of the COVID vaccines. But importantly, to get to a potential big success, a lot of determination is required, a lot of capital is required, and it takes a long time to get there. So the 10 years of constant support of these companies, of bringing in additional people, of connecting, of trying again, and still having the support of the investors was crucial for the success of the mRNAs, which luckily, from today's perspective, were ready at the time when we needed it most. But this is a long-term partnership approach we always have to do with the companies we support. And it's not just the capital; it's really the networks we provide. It's the interaction in the ecosystem. So this is a journey we embark on together with those companies, and we're prepared for failures. But of course, we hope in the end for bringing innovation to the market. And as Cedric said, couldn't agree more, to patients. This is the ultimate goal here.
You mentioned failures. What is the most common, or maybe there's a group of barriers and problems that lead to failure for startups and great ideas that were generated in universities that then never made it to a treatment, never made it to the benefit of the patient? Is there a pattern?
If I can summarize, sometimes we say, do we need, if you have to choose, it's better to have a disruptive and strong science, or do you prefer to have an amazing and awesome management? Because sometimes with a quite standard and not sort of rocket science, but a great management can do something. And sometimes I deposit, if you have a poor management, even you are a great science, it can go nowhere into the wall. So just to summarize two key pillars for sure, and two risk potential is the science. So what we call by the science is making sure you have, of course, a patent, but it's about mechanism of action. It's about target engagement, really to understand how you can really develop properly also the science, and it's also about then the therapeutic area that could fit well. And regarding management, I think what we have to keep in mind, and Sascha perfectly said, taking into account an assumption is a 10 years journey to put a drug on the market in average. Every stage, preclinic, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, regulatory and market access is pretty much a different game. I'm not saying a different company, but definitely different skill set you need to bring into the board, into the management level, to making sure you properly first anticipate the next phase, and properly execute, because at the end of the day, it's all about also execution. So I've just stopped there, but I think it gives you a bit of sense and tips of how you can put the things together and try to anticipate the challenges, the risk that has to be overcome year after year and step after step.
Thank you. I mean, it is, as you said, risk capital. So, of course, there are quite a few that won't make it. In other words, it also has to be very big when you have a success, like you mentioned before, Sascha, correct?
Yes, indeed. So, in fact, the majority of investments won't make it, right? So, I mean, it depends on what stage you start to support a company. By definition, the earlier, the higher the risk. But overall, still, I mean, there's lots of failures, and that is okay. I mean, that's part of innovation, right? You try and you do all the best, but in the end, you are stepping on new territory, and by doing that, you will have to find barriers. You will have to find problems at some point. And the important step is not to give up, right? To continue and maybe try a different approach, or at some point realize that you've gone the wrong way and start afresh. And all that is quite expensive, of course. Overall, this is the interesting part for us as investors. We never know where the problems really lie. There are, of course, some typical sources for failure and success, as Cedric also mentioned. And the technology has to be really innovative. The management has to play its vital role here. But this is always a new land you have to conquer to a certain degree, and that's what also requires patient investors and a supportive framework. Because if we start with that journey and then along the way the rules are changed, that really becomes a problem at some point, because given those long-term views and the goal and the need to have multiple shots on goal, if you will, that requires a certain stable framework, a supportive framework to nourish and to help the companies grow in the end.
In other words, if I understand that correctly, what you do is the process, is to some degree coaching. It is helping those who had the brilliant idea but are not necessarily business people. And as you said, in several stages, there are different skill sets that are required to help them to manage that as best as possible. But the big challenge is the environment in which you operate, in which the startup operates. If there suddenly is a change of the rules that affect the game overall and the objective, that is something that you cannot control, and that is something that you probably also cannot really help these startup companies much to deal with, because it is outside of the control. It is something that's in many cases coming from government, from policymakers, from also sometimes administration. Is that a good summary?
It is clearly a good summary, but so we talk a lot about risk, failure, and so on. I think it's also important to say that we have this appetite for risk, and that all this and any challenge could be seen also as opportunities for us, opportunities to bring innovation, opportunities to find a new way to overcome any technological, any regulatory paths and challenges. So I think we have the motivation for sure, but this kind of excitement to manage all this risk, all this long journey, and we are an appetite for this, because at the end, once again, we know the reason why we are doing this, and it's so is so, I think, grateful when we can just change lives and bringing innovation to patients.
You are at the forefront, and of course, you have the excitement. You are involved. What incentive is there for the investors? Where does the money come from? Because those investors, of course, are somewhat removed. They hand the money over to you, they invest it in the fund, and you make it work. So what's the incentive for them? Because risk also, of course, goes all the way to the first euro invested in the fund that hopefully will pay back later. So who are typically your investors?
Well, I mean, in general, capital is fluid, right, and has no borders. So that is important that we are, in that sense, competing with any other source, any other form of investments. So people can, of course, invest in stock markets. They can invest in real estate, and they can invest in what we do, which is life science innovation financing. Why do they do that? Well, I mean, certainly there is the opportunity to get returns overall that must be competitive. This is not charity, but of course this is for business. But the component of supporting life science innovation plays a vital role in for many of our investors. So we do have large institutional investors, banks, insurance companies, and private investors. It's a very broad range of people supporting this, who are of course expecting a return at the very end. But there's always this component of investing in an asset class where you have different dynamics, and where you have also the benefit of achieving something for society. It's not investing in oil, or it's not investing in old technologies. This is innovative solutions we're supporting here, bringing new technology to markets which they haven't seen before. So that certainly is an additional component to pure capital provision.
Yeah, and I think, well, if I can talk about Sofinnova Partners, we are lucky having this strong base of LP built over all these years, and I think that's also the reason why we were able to diversify and develop such a platform. At Sofinnova, we have 6 strategies, all investing in life science, but 6 different strategies with 6 different and dedicated team and dedicated funds. And I can just talk about myself. When 5 years ago, we had this idea to be a bit a kind of pioneer of a growth fund, crossover fund, be able to invest in private public companies, supporting clinical stage development. Honestly, for our LPs, it was a big bet. But the fact that we have this history, this trustable relationship for quite a while, they were able to trust us, to invest even upfront in a way on the concept, on an idea where we are really convinced. But it's also the way you can really build a long-term relationship and be also innovative in our sector to bring new strategy, new team, and new way to develop our company. So it's absolutely critical. As Sascha perfectly mentioned, then of course you need to give back some reward for sure. You need to treat them properly. More and more, you need to offer some co-investment, and they are there is also appetite for this. So once again, a long-term play, a long-term game for sure.
How do you find the companies? Do you go scouting? Do they approach you? How is it that you, well, identify, search for and identify and help those companies that are worth it? How do you find them?
Well, in fact, there's a big need for financing, right? So there is luckily a lot of innovation coming from research institutions, small companies, people who really love science. But what they often lack is the capital to move forward. There is some state funding for sure. There are options to get support, but it's all limited. This is a business where a lot of capital is required. Those clinical studies cost hundreds of millions. Bringing new technology, new pacemaker to the market is extremely expensive. So here, people are actively searching for support. And so oftentimes we simply can't respond to all the requests for financing. Besides that, of course, given all our networks, our decades of being connected in the industry, we are actively going out. We speak to people at the forefront of science, build relationships to help these people also at a point where they may not actively need our financing, but we can guide them to a point where it makes sense to actively work together. So again, here, this is a complex and a long-term play where experienced investors like Sofinnova and TVM are certainly playing a vital role.
I completely concur to what Sascha just mentioned. Is this mix between receiving some introduction call or I think we have 1,500 new deals per year at Sofinnova. I guess it should be the same at TVM. But we like also having this proactive approach, leveraging our network and trying to preempt a bit some deals. I think what could be interesting to share is all what we just said just means that we need and we're mandatory to implement a very effective and quite aggressive triage in our deal flow. So when we are talking about 1,500 deals per year, you can imagine that if you see the number of deals we are completing every year, there is a massive and very aggressive triage. So it's probably where it's sometimes difficult also for company to understand, to accept. But once again, there is a need for selectivity and trying to pick the best one and the best pick.
Yeah, I think that helps, and I think it also makes it clear it's an ecosystem. It is really a startup ecosystem where you live from the network, from the flow of information, from the knowledge, from the interaction, and there are many conferences that are put together in Germany. We have a strong network of government-funded accelerators and incubators, and there's a whole, well, group is not enough, a whole society and range of experts in the field, from the academics that have the brilliant idea in university to people like you who help, finding the exit strategy and making it worthwhile and provide the return on investment. It's a long journey, it's a difficult journey, and it's also fragile to some degree, which brings me to the point. There was much discussion about patent protection. How important is IP, intellectual property, for you as venture capital? The debate is still going on internationally about waiving the patent protection for technologies for the vaccines, for the corona vaccines. That, of course, would change the game in a fundamental way. So how important is that, and how does it impact your business and kind of also guides the investment decision that you have to make?
Yeah, I think Rainer, it's of course a key question, because we are talking about innovation, and innovation has to be protected. Happy to take the risk, but making sure you can get the reward if it's successful. It has to be a fair game for sure. And all what we said regarding the risk, regarding anticipation, deal sourcing, and so on, what we all intend to be is ahead the curve, ahead the next wave. So it's really to be able to catch what could be the next big thing in terms of disruption, in whatever it could be. A new target could be a new platform, a new modality, a new technology, and is really what is driving our effort, our business, and all about innovation. But the counterpart is that, of course, we need to making sure we can protect our innovation, and we can enjoy as soon as we are touching and reaching the market, the revenue, the reward of this long and risky journey that we described from the beginning of discussion. Then for sure it needs to be true innovation. In the past, maybe we have seen some way to protect with additional patents, formulation, and things that were probably sometimes could be put into question. But at the end of the day, it's super important, and I think LSAA will be there also for this kind of important matters to defend our innovative industry, and making sure, and particularly based on the patent protection, we can really develop our companies, but at a top of time having the benefit when it's a successful one. And maybe last point, the COVID showed that there is interaction, there is sharing. We share. You talk about ecosystem, not thinking it's only any company, any fund working on his own. And same about funds. We are not competitor with Sascha. We are happy to lead some deal and then invite some other funds, and then it's the opposite. So that's really people business and ecosystem.
Let me expand on that. Because this is absolutely crucial to also understand the dynamics here. This is indeed a business where a lot of cooperation is required, because the amounts of capital needed to bring innovation forward are beyond what a single fund can basically shoulder. So here's always cooperation. And just to highlight that aspect, why patents are so important and really a crucial element for us to invest. If we were to invest over a course of 7-8 years, 200 million collectively into something, which is then brought to the market, and the very next day, once it's proven that this works, right? Somebody comes and just copies it, like what's done with generics, and there is no protection for that, then the entire thesis and the entire basis for investing 200 million in the first place is gone the second after it's on the market. So of course that doesn't make any sense. Hence there's a patent scheme for decades now in place, and it has its right. And because with that we secure that those people who take the risk, who go at the forefront, who invest and will fail every time, but still make it to the market, that these innovations are protected. And then once that is at a stage where all the investments are basically paid back to the investors, then of course there should be generics and it should be available freely. But it is a mechanism which has proven to be very essential to the business, and I cannot think that there would be any incentive for anybody to invest those amounts with that sort of risk if there wouldn't be any sort of protection afterwards.
Thank you. I think the debate was really more focused on how do you get, as the US says, shots in arms. So how can you make this vaccines available and effective worldwide? And it was, I think, just an idea and not a very good idea to waive the IP protection. There's licensing models. There are other ways of getting vaccines produced around the world. There are several initiatives underway already. And the other thing that keeps or is forgotten in the process, especially on the policymaker side, technology has to be available in a much broader sense than just a patent for the vaccine, because the production is very complicated. There are many fundamental processes that are also protected that you would have to waive. So there would be suddenly a massive giving up of fundamental values that have been created through investments and through risk capital, as you just described. But looking at the positive side, what developments would you say are encouraging that improve the situation overall in Europe? Because we still lag behind the US in venture capital and also in the ecosystem and the innovations developing from there.
I think we have to recognize that the COVID-19 outbreak really accelerates a lot of things, and particularly in Europe. First, the state of mind, where biotech, ESSEC really come back to the center and as a strategic, as really important. All the debate about production, making sure in Europe we can produce our vaccine, our drug on our ground, not to be too dependent from other continents or countries. We also realize, we discuss risk, but that probably one of a different mindset in Europe versus US is also the public money. Public money at risk in the US is something quite natural. In Europe, public money, it's usually difficult to say, we invest public money at risk. And I think we realize also with the outbreak how it's necessary. We talk about this DARPA and BARDA, all this public entity in the US. And I think there is here a kind of wake-up call in Europe, where also the public money will be more massive, but more putting at risk. And what does it mean for us? It means that we have this flow that will infuse also our company, our industry, and helping also the private capital that we just discussed and Sascha just talked about. So all together, I think that's something that is really, I would say, exciting and good for the future, and particularly for Europe. One example, and I'm sure Sascha has also some example in Germany, but in France, there is an initiative also that was launched 18 months ago, namely TB initiative, to help insurance company to, I would say, invest in the tech sector. So not only the biotech, but the tech sector is a ticket of 10 billion altogether, investing in many in fund-to-fund. So he also is not going into just saving accounts and long-term pension fund or things like that, but more and more also investing a bit more at risk and infusing. So that's the kind of really interesting initiative. And we are really a post-outbreak versus before. And I think it's, once again, I'm very positive about the trend we have. I'm sure Sascha has some example.
First, I can reiterate what you said, and I fully agree that there was a wake-up call, which this crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic created. It very vividly showed everybody, not just the general public, but also the policymakers, how important a functioning life science industry functioning industry in general to produce vaccines, and the innovation behind is for society at large. And with that wake-up call, now also certain changes in perception, at least, have started. We have to see how that is really transformed into enduring legal frameworks and policies. But I'm hopeful that that people really understand how important it is to support this industry. And this is not a nice to have, but this is really a fundamental and vital element of our society. So I'm very hopeful that this is recognized, and we are more than ambitious and motivated as TVM to continue providing financing for innovative companies, in particular also in Europe.
Well, thank you very much. That concludes today's episode. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your expertise and experience. And for those watching, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.